Biden has a new ad out that hits Trump hard on his pandemic response. And what does 2016 presidential polling tell us about today's race?
We're back with Inez Stepman, senior policy analyst with the Independent Women's Forum, and former Bernie Sanders advisor and author of Tio Bernie, Chuck Rocha. Welcome back.
Great to have you guys.
Good to be here.
Inez, let me start with you. So this caught my eye yesterday, comparison between the 2020 polling now and same time in 2016, according to the 538 average. And yeah, Biden is doing a little bit better than Clinton at this point, according to this average, but not that much better. So now he's up 8 points nationally versus Clinton was up 7.4 points nationally. I am very much of the opinion, and we have been on this show, that Trump has completely screwed up the coronavirus response. You have only 13% of Americans who are satisfied with the direction of the country. 80% say we're on the wrong track. He is completely absent from the economic conversations. I think he could be in a commanding position had he handled some of these things better, and it's been an utter disaster. However, when I see things like this, I check myself a little bit because we have been to this rodeo before. A lot of people had a lot of confidence that Hillary Clinton was going to cruise to election because of Trump's manifest failings, and ultimately she did not become president of the United States. So what is your kind of view of the state of the race and how we should compare this moment to 2016?
Honestly, because of the repeating crises that seem to layer on top of each other that we've been experiencing for the last 5 months, I think the time between now and November might as well be a year. And I just think that we're going to face a whole host of new issues probably in the coming months that change the landscape of the race. I actually agree with you. I think Trump's coronavirus response has not made Americans happy, and for a good reason. He did make some mistakes. His administration has done some things well, actually. And he's always touting those same couple things, right? That he closed the borders early with China. But this could have been an opportunity for Trump, one, to show that in a crisis he does take things seriously, and he kind of seemed to vacillate back and forth in his briefings on when he was doing those daily briefings on coronavirus. Vacillate between, sort of presidential for a moment and then back to sort of Trump himself. I think those kinds of flippant comments and self-interested sort of remarks about his own popularity, people can laugh at those remarks and they don't really care about his tweets when everything is going well in the country, relatively speaking, when the economy was booming, when people's wages were going up. They land differently when people are afraid of a virus and they're afraid of how, they don't know how they're going to pay their rent the next month. I think those comments land differently. So I do think that he's not done a good job. And he didn't seize the opportunity he could have to double down on his anti-globalism message, right? That he could have said, this is just pointing out all the things that I have been saying, that we need to bring more of our manufacturing home, that open borders are not a unalloyed good. He could have made this an actual opportunity to unite the American people around some of the themes that he had in his campaign, and he kind of blew it. That being said, I do think that it's a long way between now and November, and with the speed of that things are coming at us in 2020, I think the conversation could be radically different in 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
So Chuck, what's your take on that? Because I agree with Inez, in the sense that so many different things can happen. But one of the numbers that Crystal mentioned that's just so startling is that 13% of Americans think things are going well. I don't know who those 13% are. Right. But so based on the polling we just showed you, is this going to be this election solely about where we are right now with coronavirus? Or do you think there's still a chance for these candidates to present their respective visions like it's a traditional election?
They still have time. And to Crystal's point about a rodeo, we have seen this rodeo. I've done some of my best work at a rodeo. And let me explain down on what's happening with these numbers. The last time we were at this rodeo, it wasn't that far off. People like to say, the polling was wrong in 16, and we've seen that Hillary was way ahead. She was supposed to win. They're talking about national numbers, and the national numbers were right on last time. What was off was a little bit in certain states and states polling. What you need to think about now, and why Donald Trump is still in this thing, is all the numbers you've showed are national polls. And those are right. And I'm doing $1 million worth of polls every week in focus groups. I know where this race is. And Joe Biden is way ahead nationally. But in a small group of states where this election is going to matter, Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, North Carolina, Trump is still within single digits. That's why anything can happen. Do not focus on these national numbers, or Donald Trump is going to get reelected, because something else could happen in 30 days or 60 days, to y'all's point, and change this whole thing. It only needs to change 4 or 5 points in 4 or 5 states, and we're right back to reelecting Donald Trump. So think about that. Don't look at these national numbers. People they have a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear. There's lots of things going on out there that are all true. But this is a presidential election and the Electoral College. Don't forget that.
Yeah, Chuck, you do have access to so much data. You're running ads through your PAC targeted Latino voters. What are the numbers that you're seeing that make you uncomfortable, that keep you up at night?
The down ballot races. Everybody knows Donald Trump. Now, whether they're motivated by Joe Biden or not, that will fix itself or not fix itself by election day. Right. So I am not as worried about the presidential in certain states, let's say for Texas, like folks in Texas, even though they're not getting all the advertisements that they're seeing in Florida, people know Donald Trump. And they're getting to know Joe Biden. I was really worried about Biden 60 days ago, but with the money spent now more people are starting to see policy positions. He rolled out his Latino thing yesterday. What worries me is when you talk to voters about the congressional races. Cori Bush last night beat an incumbent Republican because something is happening out there, right? So people aren't really beholden to all of these incumbents. A lot of them Democrats, a lot of them we have to reelect to keep the House. And I'm more worried about the Senate races, right? These Senate races in North Carolina, where there's no money being spent on Latinos, these Senate races in Colorado and in Arizona. Because if we're going to do anything in this country to really have major public policy changes, we have to win back the Senate and win it back with a little bit of a cushion, because still we're a long way from 60 votes. So that's what keeps me up at night, is the amount of, or the lack of spending in the Latino or people of color community in these Senate and congressional races.
And as I wonder if you can weigh in a little bit on the Senate races that Chuck is mentioning. On the Republican side, we're seeing a lot of these sort of Trumpist candidates get rejected. We saw this in Alabama, although there's a little bit of a different dynamic there. We saw this when Chris Kobach went down last night. We have a primary tomorrow in Tennessee, which will decide between Bill Hagerty and sort of the Trumpist candidate, Manny Sethi. So what do you think is going on in the Republican Party? Obviously, it's a little bit different when you have a president, an incumbent president, that's sort of defining these play calls. But when you're seeing people like Cori Bush win on the left, upending the establishment, on the Republican side, we keep cementing it a little bit. So what do you think is going on here?
Well, I think Donald Trump, because of his personality, really sort of sucks all the oxygen out of this conversation on the right. It'll be really interesting to see. I hope in another 4 years, but if not much sooner than that, what happens to the ideological transformation of the Republican Party once Donald Trump exits the scene. And I do think that right now, the divisions in the party are sort of papered over by, for good or for ill, by Donald Trump. So like even Donald Trump's, endorsements don't seem to matter that much, right? Within primaries, because people are so focused on Donald Trump himself, and they know that he sort of represents a certain not just set of policies, but a set of attitudes towards the establishment. And then when he goes out and endorses somebody, it doesn't seem to transfer, right? And I think that's because he is so different from the traditional Republican Party. We'll see. I don't know. I think those conversations are happening now. I think they're really, really interesting about where the future of the right in America really will be. And it'll be interesting to see actually and to discuss it more, especially with Crystal over the years, because I think the Republican Party might be moving in a direction that Crystal likes better than I do. But I do think that again, I've always been really clear on the show, by the way. I'm not a campaign manager. I don't know anything about running a campaign or electing people to office. But on the ideological side, on the principle side, I do think that there are a lot of deep divisions in the Republican Party, and the challenge will be to seam together some of the more populist elements of Trumpism, minus Trump, with a more, not the establishment thinking of the Republican Party, because honestly, I think they have a 3% constituency, which is about what Jeb Bush got, but with the more Tea Party side of the base, which is stronger in Texas, it's stronger in Arizona, it's stronger in the Sun Belt, that kind of leave me alone. They're still quite Reaganite, coalition. So the challenge will be then to seam together sort of the Rust Belt Donald Trump populism with the Sun Belt, sort of Tea Party bold colors Reaganism. I think that's going to be somewhere in the middle where those two meet is going to be where the right is going to end up, I think, post Donald Trump.
That's a great point.
It is going to be fascinating to watch those divisions unfold, and also the ones we're seeing in the Democratic Party as well. Guys, great to see both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, another stimulus package is hoped for later this week, maybe next week. But what will it ultimately look like, if it even happens at all? We're going to discuss the latest economic news when Rising continues.